Students, I welcome you for the online class of business studies. Today we will be going to learn the controlling next part. After the relationship between controlling and planning gets over, now the next topic of our chapter is controlling process. Controlling process is a very important topic, student, as we must know what are the steps to be laid down, why to do controlling. So let us have a particular flowchart reading. First of all, controlling process. Very first controlling process start from establishing the standards. Then we are measuring of performance. Then the next step is comparing performance with the standards, and next we will be doing analyzing the deviations. And the last is taking corrective action. So this is a process of controlling, student. One by one we have to follow, then only we can do the controlling. Setting up of target standards. Standards are laid down, student, means target or the yardstick against which the actual performance is measured. The standard become basis comparison, and the manager insists on following of standards. The standard must be achievable. High or very high standards which cannot be achieved are of no use. Standard must be set up keeping in mind the resources of the organization, and as far as possible, standard must be set up in numerical or measurable terms. So setting up of the standard target says that, student, that we must follow a yardstick against which the actual performance has to be measured. The standard must be the basis. Means the planning which we are making, that planning must be so strong that it must not be fluctuate or frequently change in the future period of time. So very first step of controlling start with, we must have a standard to be set. That standard must be stable in such a way that it must not change with the changing time. Standard must be set up keeping in mind the resources of the organization. As for example, standard sale rupees 20 lakh per annum. Standard profit rupees 4 lakh. Reduction in cost by 5%. So this is a standard how we can made up according to the capacity of the organization. Sometimes it is not possible to express the standards in numerical terms. For example, setting up of quality standards or standard for managerial work. There we cannot measure the things in quantity terms. Their quality matters. The standard must specify the time limit within which they have to be achieved. And as far as possible, the standard must be set up for shorter period of time. Because as per the short time period standard will be there, that will be achieved soon, as well as quality will be managed. If long-term standards are set up, they must be divided into short terms. That is better. Because there also we can manage the quality of the particular standards, and we can achieve it also in the proper sequence of time. For example, standard sale per annum is 12 lakh, then per month is 1 lakh. Target can be taken for companies with short-term targets or standard. The errors can be detected early and timed action can be taken. The standard must be revised from time to time keeping in mind the changes of business environments. Some examples of standard use in functional areas are as follows. Production function. Target production of 10,000 units per month. Standard cost per unit is rupees 10. Reduction in wastage of resources by 5%. Reduction in defective production from 10% to 5% by the end of 1 year. Marketing function, when we say target sale 1 lakh units per month. Increase in market share by 10% in 1 quarter. Increase in advertisement cost by 10%. Increase in expenditure of after sales service by 10%. Measuring of performance, when we see, student, the second point step of controlling. Here we measure, the standards are set up in the first step. Now we will measure the performance. It is whether the performance which we are doing, the actual performance, we will measure it, so that in the future period of time we can compare it with the standard performance. After setting up of standard, the performance of the employees is measured by evaluating the actual work done by the employees. It can be made by the self-appraisal report or by the report made by the supervisor. Okay. When the performance can be measured numerically, it is very convenient to measure the performance. While measuring the performance, the quantitative as well as qualitative aspect of performance is kept in mind. Sometimes employees, while measuring the performance, quality standard are also measured. Certain quality parameters are fixed to measure the quality standard. When number of rejections or sales return increases, it indicates low standard of quality. Generally, the performance of managers is measured by looking at the overall efficiency level of organization. The performance of research and development department is measured by change in technology and updation of production department. The performance of financial department is measured by checking the solvency and liquidity ratios, etc. The performance must be measured periodically in short period of time. So this is the measuring of performance, student. After setting up of standard, the performance of the employees is measured by evaluating the actual work done by the employees, and while the performance can be measured numerically, then it is very convenient to measure the performance. Okay. Sorry. So actual performance must be known to the employees, because if the actual performance we are not able to measure properly, we cannot compare it with the standard performance, and controlling cannot be done. Compare performance against the standard. We have first set the standard. Second step, we had measure the performance of the employees. Third step, we will compare the standards, planned standard, and with the actual performance. Compare performance against the standard. After measuring the performance, the manager compares the actual performance with the standard plan performance and standard. If there is mismatch in both, then the controlling function ends there only. But if there is mismatch or deviation, then the manager tries to find out the extent of deviation. If the deviation is minor, then it should be ignored. But if the deviation is more, timely action must be taken. Analyzing the deviation. All deviation need not be brought to the notice of the top management. A range of deviation should be established, and only cases beyond this range should be brought to the knowledge of top level management. This measure must divide the deviation in two categories: deviations which need to be attended urgently in one category, and minor or insignificant decision in another category. Because if this way we will categorize, it will become easy to us what the deviation, major deviations, how we can tackle it. Minor deviation can be left out, or it can be taken easily in the next step. These two categories must be controlled by following ways. Very first, critical point control. Critical point control, it means keeping focus on some key areas, and if there is any deviation in these key areas, then it must be attended urgently. Key areas are those which have impact on the whole organization. For example, if there is increase in production cost by 5 per unit and there is increase in postal cost by 20 rupees, then more focus should be to find out reasons for increase in cost of production, as it will affect the profit and future revenue of organization, whereas postal cost is incurred rarely and managers have no control over the postal cost. So critical point control is that only, student. It cannot be changed. It says that we have to focus on the key areas instead of focusing on every point which is not needed to be focused. It means keeping focus on some key areas, and if there is any deviation in these key areas, then it must be attended urgently. Instead of focusing on every minute and major thing must be focused main. So that is critical point control. Like for example, is very clear. When rupees 5 per unit the production cost is increasing, this can be controlled by making control over the postal cost cannot be increased, but production cost can be increased. If our unnecessary the increase in production cost by rupees 5 per unit and there is increase in postal cost by 20 rupees, this postal cost charges we cannot control because it is the legal cost made by the government, so that we cannot control. But production cost can be managed by reducing the labor cost, by reducing the machinery cost and everything. Management by exception. It means a manager who tries to control everything may end up controlling nothing. The deviation which are beyond the specific range should not only be handled by managers, and minor deviation can be ignored. Manager should not waste his time and energy in finding solution for minor deviations. Rather, he should concentrate on remove deviations of high degree. So that is the management by exception. So management by exception is very clear, student. It focuses on the manager to focus on the important matters of the business instead of focusing on every small matters which is not, in which manager's control is not needed. So his energy will be saved and he can focus on the core competence of the business. For example, if production cost increases by rupees 2, it can be ignored, but if it increases more than rupees 2, then manager must try to find out the reason for such increase after identifying the reason for deviation, which need immediate attention. These deviation and reasons must be brought to the knowledge of top level management for critical evaluation, whereas the increase less than rupees 2 can be handled at supervisory level or can be ignored also for some time. The causes for deviation can be many. For example, fault in machinery, inefficient staff, shortage of resources, over or understating of standard. It is very essential to find out the exact and accurate cause of deviations. Advantage merits of management of sections are as follows. It saves time and efforts of managers. It focuses attention of managers on significant matters, important matters. No wastage of time and energy of manager to solve routine problems. These are solved by subordinates. It differentiates between critical and simple problems. Taking corrective measures. On comparing the actual performance with the planned performance, the manager will come to know about the deviations between the plan and actual performance. Then the next step is to know the reason for such deviation and trying to remove deviations in future. The manager takes measure to bring back everything in the track that is according to plan. Taking corrective measures may involve let the situation remain same if the deviations are minor. Redesign or reframe the plans or strategies if these are overstated or not matching with the present day business situations. Taking corrective measures to improve the performance so that in future it matches with the plan. So these are the things, students, which we have to take steps. Taking corrective measure is very important. We have to compare the actual performance with the planned performance. Then only we can come to know what the deviation come. After the deviation knowing, we must make the measures also. We must know the reason and causes of the deviation and must take immediate response for the same. So that is the taking corrective measures according to plan. Let the situation remain same if the deviations are minor, that is suggested. Redesign or reframe the plans if the deviations are major, and corrective measures must be taken immediately. Generally, the managers take measure to improve the performance, such as sending the employee for training. If the deviation is due to inefficient performance, getting the machine repaired. If delay is performance is due to fault in the machinery, making the supervisors more responsive. If delay is due to carelessness and laziness of the employee, sometimes the managers have to set the standards and targets against it. If the standards are not realistic and achievable, this revision of standard is called downward revision because standards are reduced to make them realistic and achievable. Sometimes the performance is higher than the set standard. In that case, upward revision of the plan is done and plans are set at high rate so that they match with the actual performance. The manager must take the corrective measures only by finding the root cause of the deviation and try to remove that cause. Feedback in controlling, very important thing. The steps of controlling gets over, but feedback is needed. The controlling function does not end by taking corrective action, as it is a continuous ongoing process. After suggesting the corrective measure, a feedback report is prepared. Feedback refers to list of reasons for deviations of plans or for inefficiency in overall working of organization. Along with reasons, the corrective measures are also specified in the feedback report, and feedback act as a base to establish the standard for next year, and controlling process again starts from first step. Deviation in controlling. Deviation refers to difference between actual performance with the standard performance. There are two types of deviation, positive deviation and negative deviation. Positive deviation, when we talk, when actual performance is better than the planned performance, it is called positive deviation. Example, plan 100 units. Actual production 120 units, deviation 20 units. It is positive because our actual capacity is more than the standard which we have laid. Negative deviation, when actual performance is less than the planned performance, then it is called negative deviation. For example, plan is 100 units, but we achieve 80 units, actual production 80 units. Then the deviation is negative, that is 20 units. So that is a negative deviation. So this was for today's class. I hope you have understood. Controlling chapter gets over. Thank you for today's class. Have a nice day.